Whenever you're ready.
We've all experienced stress before. The hair-tearing panic that sets in when you realize, hey, I have an assignment due that I haven't started yet, and it's due in 5 minutes. We all deal with it differently, and one way I deal with it is I turn to a craft. My mom taught me back when I was really young, yarn dolls. Because yarn dolls are a dying art, I feel it's very important to tell you about it to preserve the knowledge, the history, and the creation of this, in my opinion, a very interesting craft. First, I'll define what a yarn doll is. It's, well, a doll made of yarn. Nothing too hard there. And let's get one thing out of the way. A yarn doll and a voodoo doll are not the same. A yarn doll has no relation to voodoo, witches, or anything of that kind. While they may be made of the same material in some cases, they are not the same. They're simply soft alternatives to the hard plastic dolls you get in stores, which makes them safer for accident-prone children because if you hit yourself with a doll made of yarn, it's not going to hurt that much unless you hit yourself really, really hard. And just like people, every doll is different. Even if you count your strands, glue everything in the exact same place, there's going to be something different about it, and that's what makes it magical for me. My preferred method of doll making is outlined in How to Make Yarn Dolls, Volume 1 by Joanne Singling. Creating a yarn doll is very simple, no matter how complicated it may sound. All you need is a good pair of scissors, a lot of yarn, a couple rubber bands, some fabric glue, and something that won't bend or flex, like a clipboard or a table if you even want to. You start by pinning the yarn against the board or table, and holding it with your thumb, you wrap it around the board a couple times until you have something that's about as wide as your thumb is, tall as your thumb is wide. Then you want to take a strand of yarn, and you want to put it through the yarn, under the yarn through the one side. So you tie it, and then you just have this one little tiny strip of yarn holding together this entire book of yarn, basically. Then on the other side, you snip it off, and you've seen a graduation tassel, I know you have. Imagine cutting off that little tiny band that holds all the strings together. That's what your doll would look like at this point. Now you want to add that band back, so you just take some more yarn that's about a cubit in length and wrap it around the middle of the doll where the neck would go. Now it should look like your graduation tassel. Then after you have your graduation tassel, you pull out a couple strands on opposite side to make, well, arms. You're going to braid these later, so don't cut them off. You tie some yarn around the waist, the area where the waist will go, and then boom, you have something with slender arms. So now you're going to want to braid and trim those so that they look semi-normal. Then you're going to want to divide the bottom section to make the legs, and then boom, little tiny yarn person. Now, you're going to want to take that fabric glue I mentioned earlier, and you're going to have strings everywhere from all the tying you did. You're going to want to glue those down so that they don't fray, fall off, and your doll doesn't fall apart, because it's very upsetting when that happens, especially if you spent a long time on it. And then you can just go ahead, take some pipe cleaners, make it so you can pose it, or cut apart an old shirt you have and make some clothes. Now, you're probably waiting for the clock to hurry on up to 11 so you can stop listening to me and go on about your day. But it's history time! Don't worry, this is short. Created in the colonial American period, 1607 to 1650, yarn dolls originally did not have clothes. Instead, the doll was left legless to form a girl, but the legs were braided to form a boy. This is still the main style nowadays, however there are a few exceptions, like I mentioned earlier. Some dollars make all with braided legs and form clothes out of fabric as a covering, and to kind of personalize the doll more. Originally made with homespun yarn, this changed when yarn was industrialized. Yarn was easier to come by, making it easier to make the dolls, but unfortunately this is when the craft started to die out, which is why you don't really see much these days. And it's something that's still sadly seen to this day, something I hope to change with this. Well, hopefully you learned something, and hopefully this will help propel the craft into years to come. In conclusion, there's not much to know about yarn dolls. It's a doll made of yarn. But hobbies are amazing stress relievers. it takes your mind off of what you're worried about if you have time to not worry about it. It's also a great procrastination tool. Don't do your chores, people. So, but with all our technology these days, who knows what other crafts, what other artistic things are going to fade into non-existence because of the computer. Thank you for listening.
Really good.